It is the 13th of September, and this day in Baptist history, our reading is all in the family. Our verse is Joel chapter 1, verse 3. Tell ye your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children unto another generation. Dr. James M. Haswell was a man of God, surrendered fully to glorifying the Savior in Maulmain, Burma. James M. Haswell was born on February 4th, 1810, in Bennington, Vermont, and 25 years later he graduated from Hamilton Theological Institute, intent on missionary service. Dr. Haswell received appointment from the Baptist Missionary Union on August 3, 1835, but was asked to sail for Burma just 3 weeks after he was appointed. Inasmuch as Mr. Haswell was obliged to proceed to Boston to meet the board of the convention, he sent his sweetheart's brother, Reverend Allanson P. Mason, Allanson, Alanson, P. Mason, to his chosen bride to ask if she could be ready to marry and sail for Burma in 3 weeks. Jane Mason hesitated for a moment and then said with tears gushing from her eyes, "Yes, in 3 days, if it is the will of God." The resultant marriage of James M. Haswell and Miss Jane Mason took place on August 23, 1835, and the couple sailed from Boston on September 22, 1835, for Burma. Dr. Haswell diligently sought to master the Burmese language and then immediately turned his attention to the Peguan, Pegulan dialect. Having mastered the languages, Haswell launched into the ministry of evangelism. He was tireless in writing gospel tracts, and he translated the New Testament into the dialect of the 80,000 who composed the tribe. He published tracts to use in reaching the Nationals for Christ. For more than 40 years, Dr. James Haswell pursued the will of God on the mission field. His burdened heart caused him to write many letters to the mission leaders in the states, requesting additional missionary personnel to reap the harvest of the ripened fields of Burma. His 2 furloughs to America in 1849 and 1867 were used as well to stimulate additional interest for missions. It is delightful to realize the godly influence of faithful ambassadors of the gospel to faraway places. How often the missionary's own children follow in the steps of their parents. It wasn't long the desire of Dr. Haswell that his son, James R., joined him in the ministry. In James's youth, his father took great pains to instill the intricacies of the Pegulan, Pegulan, dialect in his mind. As a result, after James's graduation from college in 1857 and from his theological training in 1859, he too was appointed to Burma. He sailed almost immediately after completing his training and gaining appointment. Tragically, however, James R. soon was stricken with a life-threatening disease and had to return to the United States to regain his health. His physical condition was such that he had lost his voice and his hearing had become greatly impaired. After several years of recuperation, his voice partially returned, but his hearing was never restored during the remainder of his life. With much zeal, he returned to Burma and gave himself again to the work. After serving for a short time, his father, Dr. James M. Haswell, died on September 13, 1876. Again, the son was attacked with a violent disease, cholera, and after only a few hours of suffering, he too was called to his heavenly home on May 20th, 1877. But the Haswell influence was to live on. Susan Haswell was the daughter of Dr. and Mrs. Haswell, and she envisioned a very needed medical ministry to the lepers. Meeting a 35-year-old leprous lady who was bent and wrinkled by disease and suffering, Miss Haswell was moved with a great heart of compassion. The leprous lady called out, "Food for my grandchild, miss. Food, food for the baby." Miss Haswell's heart was truly moved as she saw the infant child on the stumps of arms from which the hands had decayed. Then and there Miss Haswell decided that a home must be built for the care of lepers. She wrote to the government and obtained a grant of a tract of land on which to build, but she had no money. with which to level the ground. It was the lepers themselves who volunteered the labor. They could not work rapidly, for the leprosy affected their hands and feet most of all. But patiently and painfully they cut the bamboo and thatch and put together the first little house. That was the beginning. For over 60 years, Miss Susan Haswell invested her life in the work of ministering to the physical needs of the lepers and of reaching these needy souls with the gospel. The Maulmain leper colony stood for years as a portion of her memorial. The Haswell family made a difference in Burma as they purposed in their hearts to individually invest their lives in missionary outreach. Oh, that God would raise up many families in this day who would purpose in their hearts to serve the Lord in the areas of greatest need. To God be the glory.